unlike any other war, other than possibly the war in Roses, any other war, there's been nothing like that. And in that first 12 minutes, there was electronic superiority. Most communications were annihilated or temporarily stopped, and it allowed this surgical bombing, this very clean bombing, if you ever use such a phrase, to be allowed, which put down all of the airports, all of the known surface-go, those airports, the existing airports. They were just, shall I say, temporarily annihilated. They were taken over. In the next 4 hours, the bombing raids took out the very real and serious threats that I disgustingly called toys. The toys I was referring to was the chemical plants, the biological plants, the nuclear plants. There you go. And all of the most serious that needed in those issues, that needed to be eliminated or stopped or non-usable that first day was accomplished in the first 4 hours. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's tactically unbelievable. It is phenomenal in itself. I'm not bragging about it. I'm not saying, oh, lovey-dovey, let's try it again sometime. I hope this never has to take place. And I can promise you that there are no less than 3. I'm being very, very concerted on purpose not to give any form of energy to greater numbers. There are no less than 3 immediate future scenarios that have been already prevented by the deployment and the proof of the existence of electronic warfare, of military capabilities by the United States and the allied countries with this new type of technology that you can actually launch a missile and stop it in midair. And it's never been done before. And I might add, when I made the first series of tape recordings and when in 1981, the Patriot missile was a failure. In 1981, I'm not even sure because I'm so bad on time, if it even existed then. I believe it was in existence then. And it was a miserable failure. And it was even suggested that the entire program be scrapped. I hesitantly say miraculously, those missiles are working quite well for the advantage of minimizing the loss of life.
I'm sure that almost everyone's saying this probably heard on the television the other night that they said the probability of stopping gun missile was as if you were driving down the expressway at 60 miles an hour and opened up your door or window and reached out and plucked a blade of grass. Mm-hmm. And that's what the Patriot missile was.
A particular blade of grass.
Yeah, the one that you want. And that's what they have done to stop within a 2 minute.
Right, because of the flow of this conversation, I mean, honestly, because I have to be honest, I want to just throw out a caution and a warning that the systems, the facilitations of the military machine has worked extraordinarily accurately, mechanically correctly, let's say. I can't say good and bad because it's just not appropriate. So let me say mechanically accurately. And I want to warn, as in this time to you and anybody, that being very careful about ever becoming arrogant or thinking that, hey, we're just unbeatable and this and that and the other thing. As it stands right now, and this is only intuitive knowledge, this does not come from any military sources or out of books or TV or anything else. This is only Tom Sawyer's intuitive knowledge. Saddam Hussein, I'll say it that way, being, this military attachés, those people, machines and parties, as well as he himself, do have additional potentials. I am currently aware of describable details, describable things, and I will not do that. Under the heading of, if I describe it in detail, it will give it energy. That type of thing is one of the reasons. It is not appropriate to, sometimes it is really not appropriate to get top secret information out, even if it's some other country. Prior knowledge of that, advertised knowledge of that, might force the use of that. As if it's acknowledged the location or the type of thing, and before a counteract can be implemented. Typically, Saddam Hussein, the character as he stands right now, will deploy it just to get rid of it. Knows, well, we're going to lose it in another 2 or 3 days. We might as well use it now. And that type of mentality, that type of ego, will do that. I mean, do you really think that he has enough love and desire? And I mean, the right word is love. Does he have enough conditional or unconditional love toward dolphins to ever give that a second thought?
When you talk to me on the telephone, that the oil.
Let me put it this way. I have seen dolphins surfacing in 2 feet of water, to take the next breath. And as disgusting as that is, it is right and just for you and I to know that. To be grossed out, to be offended, to be hurt by the existence of that. And you know why? Because it's real. Because it's the truth. Because it's happening. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it good. But I mean, should we be protected from reality if it's bad? And it's one of the problems of fanatical New Agers. I'm stereotyping, which I don't like to do, but and I've said it, fanatical, love of my heart, fanatical New Agers. They have a tendency to say, "Oh, I can't handle this right now, and I want to just go ooh and do my own shanties and everything else. So I'm going to run away to Sedona, Arizona, where they don't even have televisions on Bell Rack." And made the scenario. And I mean, many of us do that. We'll have a tendency to go, "I can't handle this right now. I don't need this. I don't want this. I want to live in nothing but peace, love, and joy." And they're not taking responsibility. They are taking responsibility for themselves to a very large degree, and God bless them for that attitude. But they're blinding themselves to the existing reality that's around them. I mean, there are currently still rapes, murders, heinous crimes, deceit, manipulation. And all of those things are going on. And should we all become reclusive and run off to our little Om Shanti pads up in the mountains or in the valleys and stuff like that and be insulated? There are things that you should move away from and insulate yourself from. If you don't feel comfortable in the inner city, move out. If you're lonely and don't like it at the ashram in the middle of the Adirondacks, move out. Move to where you feel you should be. But be careful about running away. And it can become habitual too. And I mean, people like Saddam Hussein, the philosophical and psychological motivation, the ego I'm talking about, there are many people like that. There are you and me on subtle levels. And we righteously think that we're better than he is because we have our own ego, but we think we have it in control. And the last time you checked with your best friend, he or she said, "Yeah, you're doing pretty good." But I mean, it's the same thing. Might be on a more mundane or lesser level or non-malicious, non-manipulative level. But it's there in all of us.
So on the other side of this war situation that we find ourselves in, even if we come out of it feeling like, we saved the planet or whatever, along with the power of being able to do this is an even more heightened responsibility to this kind of power and capabilities in check. I mean, our country could go, or in the hands of someone coming into power here, could.
Well, again, with our House of Representatives, our Congress, our system is still working. And of course, the feasibility of that is minimal of what you're suggesting.
Yeah.
But in the future, in the near future, you can't run away. You can't say, isn't it a wonderful thing that we can have these fanatical dogs or peace protesters that say peace at any price? I saw a banner and I saw somebody marching, and they had flowers and the peace symbol and all this and that. And they had the peasant dress on, and the banner that she was carrying said peace at any price. And I wanted to run up to her and go, at any price? I mean, like that. I mean, at any price? And it was, you want peace at any price, no matter what.
Well, going back to what I used to think I believe in is, you have the right to die for what you believe in, but not kill for what you believe in. And now, I'm in a real quandary. I don't know where I am anymore. I talk about chaos.
Yeah. See, individualistically, in you for you, your philosophy is still valid. In me for me, the philosophy is still valid. In a circumstance of world events, that was on a larger scale. If you're talking about your neighbor, it works. That was on a close relative, either relation or relatively speaking, in size and numbers. And it's valid. It's valid within the individual. And then our people in the military, they have the same philosophy, exactly the same philosophy, in that they will not kill. Now it's one-on-one. They will not squeeze a trigger. They will not fight or choke or knife or, the horrible ways that men kill men, people kill people. And if they exist like that, but they're in the military, and they're in the military because that's existing. It's real. It's not something that you can erase. You can't just say, let's take all the nuclear missiles and bury them. And one of the problems with that is, in a couple 100 years, you get a bigger problem. Because you got something that's not even manageable now and is very below the surface that will be coming to the surface. You can't erase problems. You can't wish them away, and you can't pretend that they don't exist. Now, how do you interact with that? A good example for people to, like yourself, who are in chaos, and that I have used for myself in my chaos with these contradictory philosophies. Because I have my own philosophy, and my actions often contradict that. Those are things that I have had to do. I mean, I've done some very lovely and wonderful New Age-ish type stuff. I've been to hands-on healing services. I have also literally, physically kicked another human being in the seat of the pants. Actually, physically, literally. Yes, I did. And I saved the person's life by doing it. I mean, I did. I saved the person's life. It was the only way I could get him out of harm's way. So, and I even laughed about it afterward. They says, I've always planned, and since my near-death experience, to kick someone in the ass to save their life. And anyway, so that worked. I'm losing my train of thought. I'd be a little too silly here. Oh,
you were talking about my chaos.
And a system that I've used for my own chaos. Look backwards in time, even philosophically or mythologically, even to a degree, of what you might call the saints. Okay, now if they be Catholic Christian saints or a saintly individual, Melchizedek, St. Francis of Assisi. Okay, granted, you have to adjust to their time frame, the society, the country that they lived in, the cultural background, the religiosity, the sign of the times, where they at war, where they at peace, so on. What do? Well, I'm not sure if I'm losing my train of thought if he's canonized a saint or not, but a very saintly individual, Padre Pio, passed on within our lifetime just recently. And of course, a very Catholic individual. So, neither accolades or condemnation. He was very Catholic. He was a Catholic priest. There is a reasonable chance that he'll be canonized a saint. So he's in that category at any rate. What are some of the things he did? He did vile, disgusting things, in my opinion. And I truly wanted to meet the man when he was still alive to lovingly chastise him or critique him. That was constructive criticism, as I would approach it as. There was with full reverence in my heart. He was doing things that I totally disagreed with and would have liked to have the chance to ask him about it, tell him about it, and sort of debate with him. I should give an example of what I'm talking about. He had, among other things that are saintly, the capability of actually, very, very, very rare circumstance, of actually facilitating, in reality, while incarnate, that was while alive, in a human being, more of a human being than a spiritual entity. See, a spiritual human being, but it was more human than only spiritual, as opposed to a saintly, invisible helper, an angelic host, being spiritual with a certain human characteristic, like a appearance of a hand or a facilitation of telegenetic movement from a spiritual essence. I'm talking about a human being, an alive human being. That breathed and eat food. He had the ability to facilitate the uplifting of what I'll just term as a lost soul in purgatory, or a lost soul from a suicide scenario. It's from a human side reality existing, reaching into the spiritual realm, and still being alive and existing as a human being. Extraordinary capabilities. But what did he do? He had to live and exist within the Catholic Church and be a subordinate, I'm saying that just factually, a subordinate to the Pope. What did the bishops do to him and for him or about him? Among other things, they took away his permission or his right to say a mass. I mean, can you imagine a priest having his ministry taken away from him by an authoritative figure of a bishop or a pope? I mean, it in itself is almost contradictory to their philosophy. And this was done. He was denied he was also punished. He was sent off to a cloistered box up on the side of a hill. Of course, he loved that.
Then he could get on with his work.
Yes. In fact, he did most of his serious work, with a greater intensity, facilitation and so on, in that capacity while cloistered, I'll say, use that phrase. So how did he act and react? Now, he didn't run away, and he got in a lot of serious political and religious trouble for what he did. How did the saints act and react? The saintly people, individuals, what do they do? Is it a loving gesture to give up your riches and go and live among the poor? Well, that's a wonderful thing if you're going to help the poor. But if you're going to become just another poor person and be a burden on the society that ultimately feeds them and houses them, then you shrug your shoulders. How righteous is that? An ultimate intended loving gesture of an individual that I knew, that I'm aware of. His intentions were unconditionally lovely. His actions required his suicide. His actuality, as I have to say it, was a complete failure. Now, what does that mean? I mean, a friend of mine committed suicide. And trust me that what I'm saying is actual and the truth. For the purposes of helping the lost souls from suicide. And his irrational rationalization, the only way he could conceivably help them was to be one of them or be with them, since he had tried and tried and tried during his life to attain some kind of measurement of any form of facilitation for the uplifting or purification or helping of what I'm just bluntly or basically terming a lost soul in a purgatory scenario from suicide. An unbelievable failure. I'm being judgmental, and I'm.
So he really didn't help them, or were you looking out there? So,
Right. Now here we have a failure, a quite unconditionally lovely, I'm emphasizing the LY, desire, intentions, and the actions were incorrect, were wrong, philosophically, religiously, and spiritually. I'm saying this for a reason.
And yet in other videos that we've done, you said something like, what's the bottom line is what are your intentions?
That's very true. This is a circumstance that, in other words, can you have as an excuse that in your insanity, your rationalization, your psychological rationalization dictates to you that you have beautiful intentions, and your actions create a scenario that is harmful to the environment, harmful to humankind, harmful to yourself. Because if it comes to life or death, or harmful to another person's psychology and so on. There's a lot of gray areas in there, a lot of fine lines. And it depends on a lot of those things. So yes, the statement is still true that your intentions are initially maybe the most important. I'm not sure if it is the very most important thing, but one of the most important things. Your intentions are a priority. If you fail at something with good intentions, it is usually a good thing. Certainly for yourself, have you progressed, have you learned, have you... Yes. And of course the example I gave was the most extreme, the most extraordinary. And here we have good intentions and a great deal of deliberation and time and work involved before actions were taken. And the actions that were taken was to commit a suicide. All right, and that is an extreme example of not just a failure of the intentions, but a failure of, shall I say, a more or less irreversible, the denial of positive results. But again,
Just to
I
clarify,
started.
the person you're talking about now is not Dr. People.
Oh, yeah.
Because you were
Yes.
one sort of led into the other.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I have a tendency to do that. Certainly was not he. It was somebody that I should not name. But that I had known both before and after. Well, that's a funny thing to say. Both before and after his suicide. That's also true.
Just because you, I won't even answer. I think I understand. Okay.
But again, what does the sign say?
I'm going to tell you what it says. It says, I'm going to get up and walk away and let you.
The viewers in this videotape are not supposed to know we have a camera person.
We should say thank you, Lynne, for the camera work. I'm going to move away, give you the last 15 minutes to really summarize what's the bottom line. Okay.
Well, just what comes to my mind, and maybe it would be a summary of what we've talked about. One of the things that has just come to mind is another caution that I want to warn or caution any of you, and that is because of the examples that I've given and some of the actualities of the last 10 years, 10, 12 years, I want to truly warn people. There's a little bumper sticker and a little phrase. It's kind of like the symbol of a certain organization, and it states, expect a miracle. And I want to truly caution people about the one-sided part of that. Notice that you and it is right and just for you to expect a miracle. Most of us are human beings, and in the human capacity, philosophically speaking, I would really hesitate and warn people about expecting miracles. There have been several miraculous, and say miraculous, not qualified as my definition of a miracle per se, but some miraculous things that have happened in my life. I've been able to facilitate a few things that other people have designated as quite miraculous. I'm thankful for that. I can even be proud of some of those things, righteous and proud. But as far as having magic work, or don't worry, the saints will take care of us, or Saint Charvel, whose name I certainly wanted to mention regarding the Middle East, who I have heard almost nothing from by the Catholic Church, by spiritual beings, or from Saint Charvel, the essence of Saint Charvel himself, I'll say it that way. And I've been a little disappointed and disillusioned. I had an expectation of experiencing or feeling or being intuitively aware or having publicized such a thing as a saintly individual, such as Saint Charvel of the Christian Catholic Church, that was again canonized by the Catholic Church from Baalbek, Lebanon, not too far away from the activities of the Middle East, and certainly part of the Middle East. And I mean, let me declare a plea. By God, this is the time. And that Saint Charvel, among other things, is attributed to being an environmentalist and for the ecology. And if there is any essence there, if there is any actuality to saints and powers of the saints and spiritual intervention and enhancement, I mean, I'm kind of crying out, now's the time. Maybe later this night, you might want to give me a little vote in the rear end to know that the existence is there. But I'm flopping back and forth between cautioning people about expect a miracle and at the same time pleading for miraculous intervention. It's okay to be aware of those things, just don't truly expect it in that, well, I don't have to do my part because a miracle will happen. Or that you should ever say, well, Tom will tell us what to do, or Dan will tell us what to do, or the leaders of our country will show and tell us what to do. We're all individuals, and collectively we make up a very beautiful animalistic spirituality that still has control, and we have the responsibility of maintaining the big blue marble. I mean, we've been given this gift. It's a gift. It's not a right. It's a gift. And the things that I've talked about, there's been delay tactics of worldly events. There has been the actual manipulating telekinetic downing of a cruise missile during the test series. Telekinetically, I'll emphasize it again. There has been, in a matter of a couple years later, or a few years later, those same technologically magnificent cruise missiles being used destructively, not maliciously, we hope philosophically, not maliciously, but destructively, for the purposes of putting down a scenario that, if it is not put down, it will not be able to be put down without the extraordinary destruction of the big blue marble of Mother Earth, or the horrendous, disgusting loss of life. I mean, in other words, in the thousands and thousands of numbers, as opposed to 100 or a couple hundred. In other words, shall we ever dare say the scenario that's existing in the Middle East right now is currently the lesser of two evils? It's the lesser scenario of you can pay me now or pay me later. Because I'm really preaching and advocating that it is a righteous and just military intervention. I mean, I was hoping a vast majority of all of my work in the last 12 years has been for this very purpose of minimizing that which was precognitive to me as soon as I lie, not on that sofa, but in the position of the sofa right in this room, a little over 12 years ago. And on that third day, when I was well enough to ask my wife Elaine to turn the radio on, that I was starting to feel better and able to think clear, one of the things that I thought about was a nuclear detonation of a malicious nature that, by God, we didn't experience. A nuclear capability that would be used by a man by the name of Saddam Hussein as early as, I believe, 1984. I'm not sure of the year, but roughly 1984. And that did not take place, by God. With the help of some people, a garbage man from the town of Greece, a newly formed priesthood to facilitate the school of the prophets, people in organizations and individuals that don't know of the existence of any organizations. And collectively, we all facilitated a lot of these things and some of these things. Don't expect a miracle. Interventions will take place. I don't plan on cashing out in the next couple of days. I've been doing my part. But I'm really seriously cautioning people to don't champion somebody who is telepathic. I have been very fearful of being called clairvoyant or telepathic or a psychic and things like that. And my God, it's been documented that, it's just the existing public documentation on the psychic things that I've been involved in. It's more than most internationally proclaimed psychics. I still don't accept the title, but don't sit back and think that those psychics will give us information.